Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Santa Isaac. Why Santa Isaac, you might ask? Well, if you're watching this in the middle of July, I guess that question makes sense. I understand where you're coming from, but if you're watching this the day after this was uploaded, so the day after Christmas, then I think you can figure out that this is a special themed daily before Christmas, and we're playing as Isaac in a Santa hat. But besides the Santa hat, which makes Isaac look a bit cuter, he also starts out with a lump of coal and 25 cents, or the quarter, and that really does spice up things a little bit because it really gives you a very strong base to go on, and the fact we have the D6, I think you can kind of expect that this run is going to go well. The lump of coal is overall one of my favorite items, and not only because I think it provides a very unique gameplay style, because you kind of have to be at range if you want to maximize the damage you're doing. So if you don't know, maybe the lump of coal, the farther you are away from enemy, the more damage you deal, or maybe to put it better, to be more technical, the longer the tear stays in the air, the more damage it deals when it hits an enemy, which means that you kind of want to be as far away as possible when you're shooting in order to maximize your damage. And that is, I mean, it sounds very theoretical or maybe very easy in practice, but as when you actually try to play the game, when you want to distance yourself, you kind of have to aim better if you want to be farther away from enemies, and at the same time you still have to avoid other sources of damage. So I really think that the lump of coal, if you want to use it optimally, requires a lot of user, not maybe input, but a lot of user knowledge to know how far you can really go before you start shooting at enemies, and where you kind of had to stand in order to maybe avoid all of them and still deal damage. So for that reason, I think the lump of coal is one of those items that does have a great benefit to it, and there's no immediate negatives. But if you want to use it, you kind of have to use it in a different way than maybe you would any other item. So if you just get a flat damage upgrade, that's no problem. You just shoot and you're dealing more damage. Or maybe if you get certain items which have a negative connotation to them, unless you use them well. So something like Ludovico, let's say, because those items have a negative effect until you learn to use them. But the lump of coal kind of works in reverse. It's just, it doesn't have any impact if you're shooting up close, or maybe it has a very small impact if you're shooting up close, but the farther away you are, the better it gets. So I really like the idea that an item is inherently good, objectively good in all of situations, but the effectiveness of it actually depends on how well the user can use it, and not a lot of items work that way in Isaac, and for that reason I really do like it. And the second item we started out with was the quarter, which is simply 25 cents. And the 25 cents is very nice for the first floor, because if we get a key, that means we can buy the first thing, or maybe we can visit the first shop. Visiting the first shop is usually a very good thing on an Isaac run indeed, because it does allow you to get some of the nice benefits that usually you go from shops. And usually in dailies, that means just getting some items which will increase the way you get consumables, meaning maybe you get Sackboy, which increases how many consumables you get, maybe you get a blank card, maybe you get Mom's Key, which is also very good because Mom's Key gives you more payouts from chests, and all of those actually came true. And with the D6 also, the shop pool becomes just a bit more valuable, because there's a lot of items that work well with giving you more charges on your active item. So something like the battery, the 9-volt, the charged baby basically, and all of those are very useful items when you're playing as Isaac, because that means you can use the D6 more frequently, or maybe optimize the usage of the D6, meaning you can then reroll the item pools you want to reroll in order to get the items you need to get if you want to be really, really successful. And that's another bonus to this daily that's not really mentioned anywhere, but every item room basically has 2 items in it, and you can only pick one, and then the other one disappears, which means that basically you're getting 2 items, or not maybe 2 items, but you're getting a choice of 1 item, or maybe a choice of 2 items, and you only pick one every time you visit treasure room. And obviously that is very strong, because you get 2 items, you can always deduce which one is better and then pick one that suits you better. So for that reason, and the fact that we started out with so many benefits, of course you can see that this is heading in a very, very strong direction. But the fact that you have so many choices and so many items, so many shops, you can visit the first shop, and there you can buy a lot of consumables, different cards, different items, and you even have rerolls, so you can kind of imagine just how varied this run is. So I wouldn't say this is a very competitive run, at least not from the standpoint that usually is. It's not really about survival, how well you can do in the game, but I would say that most of all dailies I've played so far is very reliant on luck, and not just luck, but also the usage of your D6, because the D6 really is the key here to a really, really successful run. With so many tools at your disposal, I think there's no excuse not to break the game. Or maybe not no excuse, but I'm saying that a lot of people will find ways to break the game. And the fact you can do it in so many ways, I think will also result in very vastly different scores. And whenever that happens on a daily run, I would say that you should consider the daily maybe not as competitive as any other dailies, even though there's still some optimal usage of the D6 in which item pools you reroll, or maybe how comfortable you are. So let me just maybe give you an example. If you're feeling very confident, or maybe if you're not as strong, you know that maybe your best bet of just winning the run is rerolling the devil deals and getting more strong items from it, and then hopefully those items will help you finish the run. And if you're just not maybe a very good player, or maybe if you're not feeling comfortable or anything like that, that's usually a good idea and it will help you finish the run. But maybe there's some other player which is comfortable with maybe just the lump of coal in the base tiers, and they can go immediately into rerolling the shop, and the shop then maybe gives them, or maybe because they reroll the shop more often, they have a better chance of getting some actual items which will help them break the game. And because they're maybe inherently better players, or maybe just more mechanically skilled, or maybe just used to playing with certain items, they can basically complete the game with way less than other people can, and for that reason they can maybe reroll certain shops much more. And that doesn't just hold for shops, obviously, that also holds for treasure rooms and devil deals. But like I said, with so many rerolls and so many decisions to be made in this daily, I think if you play this again in practice mode, you would always have a different run. And Isaac is kind of known for always having a different run, but that's just because there's so many combinations of rooms you can get and enemies. But I think this is one of those runs that you can play the same run over and over again and you always experience something new. Of course, the room layout will be the same, but just how your run shapes out, it will be very different. And what I stuck out here with was Dark Judas, which is obviously very great. We have just a bunch of damage. We also got a bunch of tears up, and I have Holy Light, so it's nothing very spectacular. And I was really thinking that my run was going to get a much better, but I had Blank Art in the boss rush, and I decided to take it in hopes of finding a Yera rune and then maybe breaking the game that way and just getting a lot of consumables. But I decided to go against that. I didn't decide to go against that. I decided to go against using the D6 because I thought maybe that this could happen, then maybe I could get just a really high score. Because to that point, I was actually having a pretty strong run, obviously. I think everyone was having a pretty strong run up until this point. So having a way to get a lot of consumables, a lot of points, would really put me ahead of the curve and, of course, give us a good ranking in the end. In hindsight, because I saw just how ridiculous this run was, I probably should have stuck with the D6 and just went for a more zany, more fun run, because I think, sure, being competitive on dailies for me is quite important, just because I usually do these dailies just because I do want to be competitive and I enjoy the competitive aspect of them, but at the same time, these dailies happen once in a year maybe, or maybe when you look at it, a strong special daily happens maybe 6 times a year if you want to be very technical, but still they are quite rare, and I think those events should be more enjoyed because after all it's Christmas, even if you don't celebrate it, even if you're against Christmas for some reason. If you have an opportunity like this to just have a very strong fun run, I think you should take it. But I think I went against that grain just because I had 2 very good dailies in the past 2 days. In one I was actually second, and in the yesterday's one I was 4th when you exclude the cheaters, or maybe if you look on the online leaderboards Greedbot, which tries to exclude the cheaters the best it can. So I was having 2 very good runs, so maybe for that reason I was hoping that I could keep up the streak and then get another really good one up until this point. But of course, like I said, because there was so much variance, I imagine that I missed quite a few obvious things. And I think the fact that hurt me the most, where I really lost the most amount of points, was me exploring the dark room. And that wasn't... And there's no inherent problem in deciding to explore the dark room, but the dark room just has a lot of rooms which are very hard to dodge. So something like the double... the double... How are they called? I forgot. But basically, there are a lot of rooms which are hard to dodge, and for that reason, it's not really a good idea to explore if you're not really super strong and that you can actually hit enemies, or maybe that you're very, very comfortable in your dodging abilities. I kind of overestimated damage we do, and that was because of Holy Light. I was really thinking that if we can maybe land 1 or 2 lucky Holy Light shots, then we can really deal some damage. But of course, as you enter the room and you shoot at enemies and maybe you don't get a Holy Light shot, then things become quite problematic in the fact that they will just overwhelm you and you will get hit. So I entered the floor with 42,000 points, and I think I finished, or maybe I entered the Mega Satan at 40,000 or 500 points, and then Mega Satan hits me twice, so I actually end up on around 3,900 points or maybe 39,000 points at the end, which was obviously suboptimal. So basically I lost 3,000 points just because I decided to explore, and I always do that mistake whenever I enter Dark Room, because damage penalty is so high, and because there's so many rooms that can actually damage you, or maybe that unless you're playing really bad or unless you're really strong, you're going to get hit, and those rooms do mess you up and your score in the end. So there's always decisions to be made. Should I end up exploring, or maybe shouldn't I do that? And of course, like I said, a lot of people will have had a much better run this day, and they will explore and they will get a lot of benefits out of it. But I guess I shouldn't have done that in retrospect, of course. But as I entered the Dark Room, I really thought I was much stronger than I expected, and just a lot of crazy things happened this daily. I really am not sure how to put it in words, and I think you can tell by just maybe how confused I sound. And that was mainly because this was just a reroll fiesta. If you want a variance in a daily run, like I said, this is it. You shouldn't really steer away from that. But you can see my final build, or maybe just how my run went on this particular Satan fight. So we're quite strong, obviously. We still deal a lot of damage, but unless we get some lucky holy light shots, then we're not really super effective at killing bosses. And by super effective, I mean we don't one or two shot them like we would want to, especially on this, like I said, later floors. You really don't want to one or two shot the bosses, just because you will end up getting hit otherwise. And Mega Satan obviously has a lot of nasty forms as well, and he can spawn a lot of nasty enemies, especially the 4 Ultra Sins that he spawns. That is probably the most heinous wave, just because it is so RNG dependent whenever you get hit, so it depends on which attacks the enemies do. There might be some way to control that, as in maybe if you stand in a particular spot, maybe someone will spawn a troll bomb, maybe some other one will maybe just wander away, or maybe the third one will just spawn an attack that you can dodge. But oftentimes what happens, or maybe what can happen, is they will spawn or maybe attack with a combination of attacks that is really hard to dodge, and you're gonna end up getting hit. Of course, this is just getting hit once, but just with the amount of rooms that are like that, especially since the Womb 1 forward, really puts a damper on things. And we did finish the run with the 46,000 score, which is not too bad all in all. Of course, the damage penalty is way too high, just because we did get hit so much. And then again, this run was rather slow, as in we didn't really get any speed ups, which is very surprising. Our damage DPS was obviously very high. Exploration bonus was decent, I would say. We could have been a bit better, but it was decent. Our item penalty wasn't too big, which is obviously great, because on these days you're very incentivized to pick up a lot of different items. But if you keep it to a minimum, then that's a nice way to maybe subtract a little bit of points from your total score, or maybe not to get a big subtraction of points from your total score. Of course, because this is a Mega Satan daily, you can expect the scores in around 50,000, or maybe if someone found a breaking run, then you can expect them to go up to 60, 65,000. But overall, I'm satisfied with this run. This was more of a run for soul and not really a competitive one. And I hope when you play it, or maybe I hope that you played it, because it really was a fun one, and I hope you enjoyed it. I also hope you enjoyed my take on it and just how I played it. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.